when it was flooded. I think my tears were just like flood. I cried even though I was little, not knowing much, but when I seen those falls being flooded, my heart broke too, like my grandfather.
It really makes me almost tear up. When you look at that thing, the water's coming in there and there she goes. It's over with. Really makes you cry. It's gone.
All right, so that was 59 years ago. Today, 59 years ago today, that this, how to describe the, very strong language, of course, could come to mind. But factually, the falls were submerged. It took about 4 to 6 hours, from what I understand. And that article in the Oregonian said that they lowered the gates at 10 a.m. So, right? Yeah, 10 a.m. So 4 to 6 hours, that means, it was just filling up 59 years ago. And anyway, just something to keep in mind, and maybe have a moment of silence to remember, to do something.
It was one of our clear, cloudless days, and the people were out there to see it. Because I think that they wanted to see something that was never going to be seen again.
My dad was working on a railroad. He took me out of school, brought me in the car over here, and I remember watching the water come up. It was like a bad dream, like, could this really happen,
So anybody who wants to write about Celilo Falls for their final, there are 3 or 4 or 5 people. I didn't mean to do that. 3 or 4 or 5 people who for either because they have a conflict or because they just want to, are opting out of our model. That's what I'm going to call it, okay? I don't know if it's quite accurate, but you've heard of Model United Nations, right? Some people do that in high school. And you do events similar to what the United Nations does. Well, we're going to do kind of like that on our final exam period. All right, and instead I'm just calling it a model administrative hearing. It's not a legislative hearing. We could do that too if we wanted. If we had chosen to go that route, we could have gone that route too. Or alternatively, we could have taken that route. But anyway, so before I forget though, okay, so if you want to write a final, call it an essay, or maybe just call it a take-home final. It'll be applied ethics question, and I would invite you to consider restoration of Celilo Falls and/or flooding, destruction of Celilo Falls, however you want to approach it, from a deep ecological perspective, at least, and from a social, those two at least, okay? A deep ecology perspective and a social ecology perspective, all right? And then whatever else you want to throw in there, some Rollstonian ecocentrism or some Leopoldian land ethics or some biocentric egalitarianism, you can get there through deep ecology, right? Anyway, so that's out there for anyone who wants to write, okay? If you're here today, and send me an email. And also another option would be just to write about the Tesoro Savage Oil Terminal, all right? And what I would ask you to do with that one too is consider at least 2 or 3. In the past, my final exam has consisted of people showing up on the day of the final exam and then working 4 to 6 to 8 hours or more. Not all of them, but some of them, end up putting on a lot of time. Because I give them as much time as they want, and then they have to do 4 or 5 of the frameworks that we've studied, 4 or 5 of the ethical traditions we've studied, and apply them to questions like Celilo Falls, Snake River dams, etc. Okay, so in the past, that's the format. That's been the format. This is the first time I've suggested this kind of model administrative hearing approach to the final exam, just because I want some of you to have fun. I think some of you will have fun with it. It sounds like some of the response indicates to me that some of you will have fun with it. All right? And it's a much easier, obviously, alternative for those of you who are pressed for time. Others, though, I would acknowledge it's easier to do the writing, to do the written part, okay? For some people, it's easier to write an essay, even though it might take physically, I don't know, man, meeting with your groups and stuff. I would expect all of you who are participating in our administrative model hearing, our model administrative hearing, which will be a week from today at 10 a.m., okay, right here in this room. All right, and we're going to get started right off the bat. And I'm going to come in and set up the tables if I need to, and my table will be up here, and then there'll be a table for panelists, you know, and we'll go over that a little more today. I want to make sure we all understand before we leave class today what's expected of all of us, okay, all of us who are going to participate. And if you don't want to participate and you want to do a written final take-home exam instead, send me an email or talk to me after class, okay? And there are a range of applied ethics subjects that you could throw into the mix, whether you want to do Snake River Dams, whether you want to do Celilo Falls, whether you want to do them both. In the past, I've just had an interesting question throwing 3 policy options out there. Status quo, leave everything the way it is, leave all the dams the way they are in place, and then the second option is take out the lower Snake dams, but don't touch Celilo Falls or where all the famous historic fishing sites are, which are all in the gorge there between where Celilo used to be and where Bonneville Dam now stands, right? That would be so the second option would be just status quo, except finally remove those stupid, onerous, ridiculous lower Snake dams because they don't make any sense from any perspective, right? And then the third option would be, though, to restore not only the lower Snake River by removing those dams, but also to restore the gorge and the fishing sites, the historic fishing sites. Anyway, so that's something to think about too if you want to write about that. All right? I just want to make sure everyone's comfortable with, you know, going into the final exam and that everyone thinks, you know, it's fair. I don't want anybody to be on the spot. All right? I know Wentz wants to make sure that he's in on the hearing, but he's going to have some presentation problems, so we need to make sure. Anyway, we've got a few little logistical problems that we need to make sure we straighten out before we leave today. Plus, we also have a whole bunch more philosophical material to go through today. And not only that, we have to do, so I'm going to stop talking no matter what else is happening. I have to stop talking at 1:30, all right? And then I will pack up my stuff and hand these out. We need a volunteer who's going to Newburgh or willing to deliver them to the, we'll have Chris do that. Chris will, and I'll make sure I put the CRN number up there and everything. I'll do that. So I have to stop talking at 1:30 no matter what, because then you guys are going to fill these out. And not only that, but you're going to fill out the course evaluations and make comments on the back of them if you want. I hope you do. And then you're going to wait around till your cohorts, till your fellow panelists, till everyone's done pretty much, almost unless you luck out and you know, your group. But basically, I want each team to be identified. There's going to be one team of 9 students, all right? And that's the Tesoro, Savage, the Vancouver Energy team, right? I don't like to use the word team. It's what are they? They're the petitioners, is what they are. Vancouver Energy and they have 9 people on their petitioner group that's going to try to make the case that we should improve, right? To Governor Inslee. That I should approve. Me and my staff and my various administrative branches of my executive government should approve this, right? That's going to be their job, those 9 people. And you already all know who you are, I'm pretty sure. Because the other side is there are still some slots available. And that's another thing we need to hammer out before we leave today. All right? So you'll fill out your course at 1:30, I depart. All right? Probably be more like 1:34 before I get out of here. But anyway, then you guys will be furiously filling out your course evaluations, and then you guys will be meeting with your groups, all right? Not only will you identify your larger group, for example, if you're one of the 9, right, who's going to be arguing in favor of this oil terminal, right? You're also going to know your smaller group, right? There are going to be panels. Every panel is going to have 3 people on it, okay? We'll go over that, all right? So you guys are going to have some work to do after you're done filling out these questionnaires, all right? And you have to exchange each other's emails, and some of you might have to track down some strays.
Shoot them.
The straying incidence of Portland State students is somewhat high and somewhat disconcerting from a teacher's point of view, and I just puzzle, you know, about why students stray like that and disregard things, and I don't know. I attribute most of it to the being overworked, you know, overtaxed, overburdened in other areas of their lives. And then I leave it at that because I don't want to burden you guys with my concerns about the Portland State student body, because I could go on and on about that, and the whole culture of the student body here is somewhat discouraging and disconcerting. But we're going to do the best we can, all right? And there are going to be some strays, and I'm going to have to ask both Nate, as Nate is one of our leaders, and Robin is our other main leader. Nate is the main coordinator. Like, he's the guy, you know, where the buck stops, if you will, because he's CEO of Vancouver Energy, right? There are 3 CEOs. There's Vancouver Energy, which is the consortium, right? And then there's the CEO of Savage and the CEO of Tesoro. And you guys are kind of the main guys. And then you guys are going to consult with the wise users, with the wise use panel, and with the Group A conservationist panel, right? You guys are going to have 6 consultants, and each of those panels are going to have its own set of tasks, right? To track down all these arguments that they're delegated to track down, right? Anyway, but you guys have to kind of keep tabs, all right? I hate to have to burden you like that, but if somebody just doesn't show up and you don't know what the hell happened to them and you've sent them 2 or 3 emails, just let me know and I'll handle it from there, all right? Is that fair enough, Robin? Okay. Because that's just going to happen. It happens every term, and I hate to have to say something like that, you know, especially to ask a student, you know, to keep tabs on stuff like that. But people have to participate at least, you know. Now, beyond that, who knows, right? I'm not going to be a stickler, but if you participate, then I'm going to assume, and you're represented somehow, not with your voice, but with your presence and your background participation at our hearing, then you'll get full credit, all right? It's that simple. And you'll just get an A. Let's just call it an A, and the equivalent of an A, right? If you participate with integrity, all right? Is that fair enough? Yep. But there are going to be some strays, like I said, and those guys are in trouble. And anyway, and I worry about, they're not in trouble in the sense that somebody's going to go punish. I'm not a cop, right? I just have a concern as a teacher. You know, nobody's out to punish anybody, and we're supposed to have fun in a philosophy class. It's troubling when especially in a philosophy class, when people stray away from a class like this. It's troubling because what else are they straying away from if they're straying away from something as cool as this too, you know? So anyway, so that troubles me, and I maybe we can straighten things out with them too, you know, if I can talk them back in somehow. Anyway, so that's how it's going to go, and we'll go over I should just bring it right back up while I'm talking about it. The format and everything. I sent out a fairly detailed schedule, didn't I? Isn't that what I did? Isn't that what it's in? What's that?
It's in one of them, yeah.
Yeah. Final exam info, is that it down there? Anyway. Yeah, that's it. Well, and I have it even better than that, though. I have a schedule. Oh, I know what I did. I have it right here. And so you'll go home with this today. I only made 13 copies. I hope that's enough. But I do have a schedule, like literally with the times and everything on there, that breaks up our 2 hours, right? We're going to run a tight ship, and you guys are going to have to be prepared to come and just get right to it. Yes?
Today, we're going to have time today to group up with our groups and talk to them?
I think it's fair that even an assiduous student who wants to do a great deal of feedback would take maybe 10 to 15 minutes to do the course evaluation, right? And then that'll still leave another 5 to 10 minutes for you guys to meet. So that's fair, isn't it? Yeah, today would be all of your initial meeting to coordinate for how you're going to proceed from there. And you have 7 days, right? You have 7 days to meet. I would expect the trios, each panel is going to meet individually at least once or twice and correspond by email, right? And then the panels are going to get together and be coordinated with the super panels, all right? Each team has a super panel. The environmentalist team has a super panel consisting of Robin, who's kind of the CEO of the nonprofit that's spearheading the whole protest, right, the whole opposition, right? And then he has an advisor from the anthropocentric environmentalist committee. And I guess I should explain a little bit why I've divided them up this way. And it's changed too. So here's how I have them divided up now. And I should explain why, because I want to get more real, is basically the gist of it, all right? I just want to get more, I want to get closer to what is actually going down. And some of you now are better equipped, hopefully all of you are better equipped to identify the various theoretical strands that go into the more popular environmental movements that you would recognize, you know, because there are newspaper articles, there's just people talk about them, right? About the radical environmentalists, you know, and then anyway, you hear these things, and now you're better equipped to identify what kind of theoretical tradition they're coming from. But in reality, when they show up at these hearings, they don't divide themselves up into groups. You know, they don't come with, you know, a group of non-anthropocentric environmentalists. But that's an effective way for us to divide up our course material, right? And you know, for example, the deep ecologists are best characterized as more than anthropocentrists, right? Whereas the social ecologists are best characterized as anthropocentric holists, right? So that's why, right? Some of you, the people in the social ecology camp, panel, there are 3 of you, are going to cooperate with other anthropocentric, like the group B conservationists, right? And then those of you, for example, the deep ecologists who are in the more than anthropocentric and environmentalist, right? And you guys have your own representative too, right? You guys are going to work together, okay? Anyway, that's how I envision it all happening. And the most important thing that you have to do is anticipate your arguments. And that reminds me of, well.
So what you're saying is you want us to show you what it sounds like to become that person, have that point of view. We're not identifying.
You don't have to become anybody's character. You just have to be professionals.
You're not identifying like, hi, I am a industrialist here, and like.
No, you're reaching for the strongest philosophical. I would do some research by actually going to their websites, you know, seeing what they actually say. They're making what? Primarily utilitarian. They're making arguments from the point of view of a utilitarian, probably an economistically inclined, and right, utilitarian who's already traveled some distance down. Here's my Kantian slant, right? And this is unfair, perhaps, right? So already traveled some distance and accepted the institutional structures, and argue then that given these institutional structures, right, we are better advised to adopt this project and to pursue this oil terminal, right? And there's a mishmash of different points of view they draw from, though, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I know how to delegate. Yeah. I want to encourage them not to be like.
But I would make sure you anticipate, and there's going to be a section of your presentation where you anticipate a meta-ethical commitment that a certain group in particular, the non-anthropocentric group of, and you're going to anticipate, they'll take a few moments to anticipate that and deflect that, and then they're going to address that. And put the whole story together is what I urge all of you to do, right? Whatever group you're in, put the whole story together and grab as much as you can from all the theoretical resources we've covered, right? Anyway, but have fun with it above all and get to know each other, you know? I mean, if I was to identify the best outcome of this new way of doing our final exam, I would say maybe it's just some of you are going to get to know each other a little bit, and you guys are going to help each other out. And because I've pretty much monopolized all the airtime or whatever, the discussion, there has been that's just how it's worked out. You know, I've encouraged discussion at various points, but anyway, this is your opportunity to do philosophy, and maybe in a less formal way. So, yeah, go ahead, James.
So what are the CEOs are doing, just utilitarianism?
You guys are reaching for whatever you think is gonna stick to the wall, you know. Try to make it just, you know, as realistic as try to somehow this is impossible, right? But somehow try to synthesize the PR with some of the theoretical.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah. Say hello to, if you can,
it's just
right?
an opportunity to have a real conversation. I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah. All right. So you'll know all of your assignments. We'll figure all that out by the end of today's class. And I have 13 copies of this, so every panel should have its own copy. But I have them just divided like this, all right? There's Vancouver Energy. That's, right, if you want to use this team language, that's team number 1, right? And then team number 2 is, you could throw in religious, but I'm not. There's a whole alliance of groups in here, right? But I'm just going to call them the environmental community. The Pacific Northwest Environmental Community, right? and so I wanted to use different colors, but below them, right? So these guys have three panels, right? A is the CEOs. B is the Group A conservationist consultants. Okay, and Group C is the wise use. Okay, so there are three of these, and three of these, right? And that is the Vancouver Energy team. All right, and then obviously there have to be considerably more. Turns out not as many more as I initially anticipated, but there are obviously more members of the environmentalist community group. And they are divided as follows. See if I can go all the way over here. That's not going to work, is it? Okay. Okay. And they're team 2, and within them they have a bunch of panels, and each panel has, I think there are, it depends how many. We know that the we're going to call them the lead panel. We know who they are, right? And they have 3 people. Okay. Let's change that to 1. We know the Columbia River Keepers, okay, is the name of the nonprofit. We're just going to pretend a little bit. I mean, why not? Just kind of make things a little more colorful. Okay, and that's the group represented by Robin. And then we have our Anthro, Enviro representative, and then we have finally our More Than Anthro. All right, that's how I have those guys divided up. And then there's another panel that's the social ecology panel. We have only one person on there so far. Dakota is on there. There could be an ecofeminist panel. Okay. Or we could just treat the ecofeminist panel as part of, we might have to just consolidate the two. If we don't have enough interest or enough people, then we'll just consolidate and we'll throw the ecofeminists in with the social ecologists. Okay, but we also can have, obviously, and I think we have already 3 people. Yes, we have Helen, Kevin, and Joy are our 3 deep ecology panel members. Okay, so you guys can already identify one another. You're all here, right?
I'm here.
Okay, Helen's here, of course, and Rose, and there you all are. Okay, and then finally, we could also have an environmental virtue ethics, which is the subject of today's lecture. But, you know, and maybe it's not fair, but I know that Wentz has already identified himself as one, and then we also could have number 6 there on indigenous, and we have identified one person, and that's Chris. And I'm thinking we might end up combining the indigenous, either move indigenous under with the social ecologists, or move indigenous in with the environmental virtue ethicists, which they could go both, in my view. You know, I mean, so we might do that, all right? Chris, is that all right? So you and Wences might get together, and maybe it's perfectly, it seems fruitful to actually interpret some indigenous perspectives on the environment from a virtue ethics point of view. Anyway, there are a lot of interesting connections between all the different kind of late 20th and early 21st century traditions that we've looked at. You know, all these from number 2 on, basically. There are all these interesting connections, relationships, and combinations, right? So anyway, that's how I have it all divided up. And so I want to make sure that we identify, we've got the CEO team all squared away. They have all their players are all lined up and raring to go. But we need another Group B conservationist. We need, let's try to identify 2 more social ecologists right off the bat. Who's just a flaming, you know, social justice champion who's been going, doing that his whole life and wants to be on a social ecologist? Nobody? Come on. All right.
Really selling it.
Who's radical? Who just wants to get up here and just denounce the massively unequal distribution of wealth in this country that leads to policies like favoritism toward Tesoro Savage Oil Terminal? That's a huge strand of arguments that probably has the richest set of resources to mine and the most attractive for a dynamic young mind who's learning to make his or her way in the world, right? And trying out his radical roots, separating himself from his family members, right? Because they're all Republicans. So, anyway, right? And now's your moment, right? And by the way, you can be on YouTube too, because I'm going to videotape this whole thing and put it on YouTube. Why not? If you object to that, you can opt out. Just tell me, and I'll make sure that you're not on the video. All right?
We decide after the fact. We'll see how it goes.
We can, and I will, and I also promise to send a letter to Governor Inslee, and a part of my letter will include a reference to our YouTube video. And so there's a chance that someone on his staff will watch what we have to say. Okay? So we need somebody who's willing to step up, and represent the social ecology point of view, the environmental justice point of view, which is the social justice point of view, just stretched out to include the environment, which makes perfect sense in the 21st century, right? So, and there are people who are all about social justice, right? Oh, they're everywhere. That's PSU's all about social justice. That's our whole heritage. It's founded on social justice, as far as I can tell. We started out at Vanport, as a way of ensuring, that was, I think, the second or third largest city in Oregon. Did you guys know that? And it all got destroyed by that flood in 1948. But anyway, so we need two more to join Dakota. Dakota, are you here? Do you want to recruit somebody? We need another social ecologist, at least one or two more. Come on. Do I have to appoint them? I have you down for, yeah, you wanted to play one of these conservatives, didn't you?
Do a villain if I could.
Yeah. Yeah, you're Steve Young. Yeah, and I have you as a Group A conservationist, but we can just pull you, if there's not enough, maybe we need to reduce their team. Maybe they're...
Harsh.
We can handle it.
I'll do social ecology.
Okay, yeah, I don't think you've been designated anywhere. Okay, so we'll put Stephanie in there. So when I get back to my office after class, sometime this afternoon, I'll finalize all of this and send it out in an email to everybody, okay? And but you'll also have these soft copies. I'm using one of them these hard copies. I'm using one of them to write down to add people. Anyone else want to be? So we'll leave you in there with the Group A conservationists on the corporate side for the time being, all right? Anybody else want to sign up who hasn't signed up though? Who hasn't signed up? Are there any human beings in this room right now who are still bewildered and haven't been given an assignment yet?
Can you tell us?
Okay, but I know Tara. I actually unilaterally assigned Tara.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I thought I did.
Can you just go through?
Oh, Tara, yeah, you're the coordinator of the More Than Anthropocentric Environmentalists.
Oh, do I have to do?
Does anybody else want to be that?
What does that entail?
That means you're going to get together with there are 3 panels underneath. There are 3 More Than Anthro panels, and there are 3 Anthro panels. And your job as the More Than Anthro coordinator is to coordinate the arguments gleaned from the 3 non-anthro panels, which are the Deep Ecology panel, the Environmental Virtue panel, and the Indigenous panel. But we might end up just combining them all. I don't know what. Maybe I should try to be more organized, but I've never done this before, and I'm kind of doing it on the fly. And I apologize about that. Yes?
Can we maybe start with you going through the list of what you have?
Okay, I need to, but let's first resolve Tara's concern. Does anyone else want to have a larger, more featured role and help out with these very, very important kind of, if you're a spiritually inclined backpacker, river rafter, who loves the whole More Than Anthro perspective, if you just get all butterflies in your stomach when you read John Muir's account of the Hetch Hetchy Valley, then you're the person to coordinate the More Than Anthros. Yes?
Do you want a paper or do the essay or whatever?
What's that? It could, I would expect, it to be at least 800 to 1,200 words, I think. No, wait, more than that. 1,200 to 1,600. Yeah, something like that.
I guess I'll do it. I was just thinking about asking you if I could write a paper.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's just going to be a massacre now. All the environmental community is just dropping out. And these guys are going to come in and just be approved. And I'm just going to have to rubber stamp their permit. No, I'm taking too much time on this. We're supposed to study environmental virtue ethics, which is really important. So what we need are some.
Well, we have some leadership here that will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does
So you'll set up a time to meet with your coordinators and
Yeah.
give them some direction.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, totally. We'll set up times after this. We'll
all right, but Tara wants to write an essay because you really enjoy writing essays, right?
Well, no.
Not really. All right. But if you were just to be a regular person and not a coordinator of any kind and not have any greater responsibilities, would you rather be a more than anthro or an anthro on the environmentalist side? A more than anthro. Okay, so a deep ecologist or an environmental virtue ethicist?
Well, I don't care.
Okay, let's put you and Wentz and Chris together in one panel. And you guys are going to cover environmental virtue ethics, the indigenous perspective, and that's it. Okay?
Okay.
And we're going to combine those two into one panel. All right? Chris just stepped out, but is that fair? Because that's the other so the non-anthros are basically we've thrown out we've combined two of these. So the non-anthros are the deep ecology. They're heavily deep. And notice I don't put in there Rollstonian ecocentrists because again that's because I want to be more real. Nobody's going to go and raise their hand and say I'm a Rollstonian ecocentrist before they give testimony. But some people are going to identify themselves because they're going to be part of a group, like a deep ecology group, or a group of. Probably nobody's going to go as an environmental virtue ethicist either, but I want to throw that, I want it still, and Wentz wants to do that anyway, so that's a very important perspective, and we have to get to it because we're supposed to cover it today. So, right now on the environmental side, we have Robin, Ashton, Tara. Ashton, you're the coordinator of the Anthros, right? Where's Ashton? Yeah, you're the Anthro Enviro coordinator. So this is the guy to go to for all your just garden variety man or woman on the street who happens to like outdoor recreation and happens to know something about utilitarian arguments, and that's where you're going to get all your consequentialist anthro arguments, right? All that familiar old stuff. And then with Tara, do we have a non-anthropocentric environmental coordinator? No? Does anybody want to volunteer for that? How about over here? Someone over here? One of you guys? No? See, I kind of sprung this on people, I guess. Maybe it's partly my fault. So I'm going to be the one doing that. Okay? So that means some of you on the so I'm going to be working with you and with you. All right?